In this lecture, we're going to use the Grubbs statistic to determine if an outlier should be rejected from a data set or retained. The Grubbs test is applied to a result that is fairly distant from the mean for the data set. We see that the Grubbs statistic is calculated by taking the absolute value of the difference between the questionable value and the mean x bar, then dividing it by the standard deviation for the data set. We then compare our calculated Grubbs statistic to a tabulated value to see if the outlier should be rejected or retained. Let's apply it to a data set to see how it works. Suppose that we have a set of 5 results where 216 is the suspected outlier. What is the average of this data set? Use the entire data set, including the suspect value, to calculate the mean. Feel free to do this using a graphing calculator or a spreadsheet, and be sure to retain an extra digit representing the uncertainty in the calculation. You'll report 4 digits. We see that the mean of the data set, where n equals 5, is 201.8. We've subscripted that 8 to indicate the uncertainty. What is the standard deviation for this data set? Again, use the entire data set, a calculator or spreadsheet to find the value, and retain the correct number of significant figures. This time we want to match the mean. Now we want to calculate the Grubbs statistic, G. When you take the difference of 216 and the mean, 201.8, you'll keep the significant figures down to the 10th place. When you divide by the standard deviation, though, you'll only be able to keep 2 significant figures in your answer. For 5 measurements, what value of G table should we use? All right, for 5 measurements, we're not going to take a loss on our degrees of freedom, so we see our G table is 1.672. What does this tell us about the relationship between G calc and G table? We see that G calc is less than G table. Therefore, should we retain or reject the value 216? Because G calc is less than G table, it should be retained.